Yo, what's cracking, folks? Jeremy Vassar here with Practical Painting. We are professional painters here to help you with your various painting endeavors. And in this video, I've actually got you guys on the job site with me today, and we're going to be taking a brand new staircase from start to finish. This is all brand new raw wood from very good carpenters that are some of my favorite to work behind. The spindles have not been installed yet because we need to do our work before they come and do that. So we've got brand new handrails, brand new newel posts, which I'll be showing you guys here in a second. Also, we've got brand new treads and risers. So for this process, what we're going to be doing is actually staining the handrails, the newel posts, the end caps, and also the treads, which I'm currently sitting on. They've got a protective covering of tape and cardboard right now, which I'll be pulling up here in a second. And then we're going to be applying several coats of polyurethane to everything that we stained. And then at the very end, we will be priming and painting the risers, and I think we've got some stringers and a few other trim pieces that we need to paint. So I'll be doing that as well. That will then conclude the work that we're going to be doing on this project, but I thought this would be a good one to show you guys, especially since I've got this place to myself. This is the only staircase in the house, so the homeowners have vacated because it's kind of hard when you can't get access to your second floor. So I appreciate that, and also I appreciate them letting me film in here. So that's the like overall view of the process, and it's probably going to end up being a longer video because I'll be here for about 5 days doing what I'm about to do. And so we are at day one, and what I like getting done on, well, technically I was here a little bit before helping them pick colors and get some stuff situated, but this is my first day kind of working on the site. So really on day one, what I like to do is get everything that I need to get stained, and that's kind of the process I'll be taking you through today. The first thing we need to do is do a little bit of sanding, and there are some logistics to consider when you're working on a staircase. So generally you want to work from the top down, and I'll be tackling everything but the treads first, because once you start staining the treads, you need to wait a little bit before you can start walking on them. And that's a little bit more important when we start doing polyurethane, but that will be for tomorrow. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is sand I'm just going to go over and do a sand on all of the newel posts and handrails and the end caps first. What that does is just kind of gets any grit and maybe dirt over like off of the handrails and any of the wood surfaces. It opens up the grain a little bit as well, because we want it to all take, you want the stain to take evenly. So just in general, whenever you're sanding, particularly now we're doing like fine finish work, you want to make sure that you're sanding with the grain, not against the grain, which you'll see me do a little bit here in a second. It doesn't need to be a super aggressive sand. We're just looking to get any like oils or anything weird that may have gotten on these when they've been, because they were installed a little bit ago, so they have been people have been putting their hands on them and things like that. So just be aware that you want to kind of give it a little bit of a scuff sand. I'm just using 150 grit sandpaper, and one of the important things too as well for this whole project is when we're using sandpaper, when we're staining or polyurethane, you want to make sure you're using new sandpaper. So if you have sandpaper that's got some paint already on it, or debris from maybe like sanding wood putty or something like that, we don't want any of that to get into the wood. That's especially important when we start sanding in between coats of polyurethane. So first we are going to sand, and again, I will be doing the treads last. So right now all I'm trying to do is sand, and then I will wipe down with mineral spirits, which we'll get to in a second, what I'm about to stain. And then we're going to stain again all of the stuff like the handrails, newel posts, all that stuff. And then once we're done that, then I'll start working on the treads, because I need to walk on the treads while I'm doing all this staining. So let's get cracking. so I've got everything sanded, and now what I'm gonna do is grab my shop vac, quickly just vacuum up some of the dust I created. Then I'm gonna grab some mineral spirits and just do a quick wipe down, and then we'll get into the staining. Alrighty, everything I just sanded has been vacuumed, and now I'm going to wipe it down with some mineral spirits. I think this is paint thinner. Mineral spirits, same deal. I just got a standard rag. I am wearing some gloves, but chances are the paint thinner is going to chew right through these, but I'm trying to be a little bit more cautious with my hands today just because I'm interacting with all of this video equipment as well. So again, you just kind of open this up, and you can wear a mask if you're sensitive to fumes, but I've sucked down quite a few fumes in my day, so it's not so bad. But anyway, you just want to soak the rag, and then I'm just going to wipe it down, and it should look wet. It should look wet when you are done, and then this will dry really quickly, and then we'll be ready to stain. So what the mineral spirits, what it does is, one, it kind of cleans off any surface grit, and it also will open up the grain of the wood a little bit, open up kind of the pores in the wood, so that then, like I stated before, that the stain will then be taken into the wood pretty evenly. So that's what we're doing now. One last thing I'm going to do before I start staining is a lot of the newel posts are going into the new floor, so I'm just going to tape out around the base because stain tends to not necessarily fleck, but it does kind of like seep down. So I just want to protect that floor. You'll kind of see upstairs where the end caps kind of connect into the new floor. I'm going to tape right up against that lip because there's really no way to stain it without getting kind of it on the floor, so that's why I'm going to tape it out so that it will avoid that. But that's pretty much the only thing I'll be taping for this project. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to pour some stain and get cracking. All right, everything's taped out that I need to tape out. One thing I would just advise, this is kind of plank vinyl that I'm taping into, so I'm not worried. Since it is a vinyl, I don't have to worry about tape kind of stripping the finish once I pull it up, so I can leave this tape down all week. I would recommend using yellow frog tape. This is my favorite. I like using the 1.5 inch. This is just inch. That's what I had in my bag, so I just kind of use that. But just be aware, if you put it on like an actual hardwood floor that's got polyurethane on it and you leave tape on it for too long, particularly if it's like the green frog tape or kind of regular blue 3M painter's tape, if you leave it on there too long, it could strip the finish off. So just be aware of that. You might just want to like lay some tape down, do what you need to do, and then pull it up immediately. But if it's plank vinyl or tile or anything like that, you're not in any danger of doing that. So just be aware. All right, so now we're actually ready to start doing some staining. Again, I've just got the handrails and the posts prepped, so that's what we're gonna start with. And then when I'm done that, then I will start on the treads, but we'll do the same exact process. All right, so this is the stain I'll be using today. It's from Czar. The color is mocha, and this is their interior oil-based stain. You can get this from generally any Benjamin Moore distributor, so that is where I got this. And just be aware, this is some of my favorite stain, but with any stain, generally you want it, when you go to mix it, you want to do it the opposite of how James Bond likes his martinis. You don't want to shake this, you want to stir it. So it's stirred, not shaken. So I'm going to pop the lid off of this and just make sure it's well stirred. And it's got, it's separated a little bit, but just take a little bit of time to get that lovely goop off the bottom and get it well incorporated. So I'm going to take a little bit of time doing this. The other thing that I need to go grab here in a second is a rag, just to have in my pocket. And then I'm also going to be using a handy paint pail. So these are, I really like them. This is a brand new insert, so you don't want really one that's got any old paint on it, whatever kind of container you're using. Just make sure it doesn't have anything that's loose that's going to come off in the stain. Also, since this is an oil-based stain, you really don't want to, even if you have like a dried container, if it's got latex paint on it, the oil in this will break it down, so that's something to be aware of too. I've got my rag, so now I'm ready to actually pour this paint. The other thing that you'll need for this process is a brush. I like brushing on stain, particularly in this application. And what's nice too is the Czar stain tends to be quite a bit thicker than a lot of the other kind of stains on the market, particularly from companies like Minwax and things like that. So it goes on much closer to a paint. It's definitely not the same, but it is, I find it to be pretty easy to work with. And this is a brand new Corona Cortez 2.5 inch brush. And if you want to make sure that whatever brush you're using should be kind of designated for stain work and for like polyurethane work. If I grabbed one of my older brushes that I've used to paint with, like regular latex-based paint, as you apply the stain, and then you'll see this too with the polyurethane, if there's any residual paint in the brush, the oil will actually pull that out of the brush, and then that'll go into your stain and also into your polyurethane and start to like ruin your finish. So just be aware of that. I would recommend just starting with a new brush. It doesn't have to be this type of brush. These are just the ones that I really like, and I keep them well stocked, so that's what I'm using today. One thing real quick too, before we get started actually laying the stain down, I'm not going to spend too much time going over this. You'll kind of see how I'm doing it through the video, but basically I'm just going to brush on the stain as I would any kind of paint. And this is not at all the same as doing polyurethane, which we'll go over tomorrow, a little bit later in this video. So when you lay the stain down, you just want to it's okay to put too much on, and it's okay for it to run. You just want to make sure you're getting a coat on all of the wood. And what's going to happen is we're going to let it sit on the raw wood. The wood will take in as much stain as it can, and then we'll come back after it sits for a few minutes and we'll wipe down and rag off anything that is any of the excess. So we're not going to leave, gobs of wet stain on it for, forever. We're just going to leave it on there for about 20 minutes, kind of do a section at a time, and then I will wipe it off as I go. And then that's the reason to, again, you want some good rags on you, hopefully that are like the dust-free kind or the lint-free kind. So that is the process. Again, just lay the stain down, make sure you get enough on there to coat every surface, let it sit for like 10-15 minutes as you move on to a new section, come back to where you started, and then rag off any excess. So that is the process that you will be watching right now. So a little job update here. I've got all of the handrails and newel posts stained, as well as the end caps up there. So apologies, I didn't have footage of me staining this last post down here. The homeowners came home and were talking for a bit, so I just had to kind of do that whilst they were here, which is totally fine. There'll be plenty of footage of me doing the rest of this. And now I have removed the Rams board for that was on the steps. And here's a little fun fact, which I will show you guys here right now. I did not put down this Rams board. That was done by the carpenters that have done the install and like did all the carpentry stuff here. Homeowners had quite a bit of work done in the house, but whoever, and I'm not spitting shade, I've made mistakes myself. But they put the Rams board down with this side down. So then this was the side that's facing up on the steps. And when I went to pull it up, the ink that's on here is now pressed into the step. It's probably on about half of the steps that I'm gonna be staining. So, and that's just like the tread part. So I've never seen that happened before, but just be aware that if you're putting down Rams board on any surface, you want to make sure that the side that has the ink on it is facing up, because I can literally see like these words on there. And now before I stain, although I was going to sand anyway, now I have to sand and make sure I get all of that ink off before I start laying stain down. So it just adds another step to what I'm doing, but it just goes to show you don't want to make sure you give yourself enough time to do things right, and you never know what you're going to be running into when you start, getting into stuff like this. So it's actually not the worst thing that's happened to me when I've stained steps. One of the first staircases I did, this is a super quick aside, this is going to be a long video, but when I went and stained it, all these little paw prints showed up in the treads. And it was because the homeowner had kittens upstairs that then they would take baths upstairs and then came down and then would rest their paws on the raw wood treads, and then the oil in their paws kind of penetrated the treads. And then when I went to stain it, the stain took more aggressively in those areas than others. So then it was a big pain in the butt there as well. So anyway, now I'm going to sand the treads. Then we are going to start the staining process, but I'll, a little bit more work to go. Might be a longer day today, and it's okay. It's all part of the deal. So we're ready to rock. Okay, so I've gotten all of the treads sanded, and I got all the ink off that kind of came off of the Rams board. So now it's just time to stain. One of the things you want to be aware of as you're working on stairs with staining, it's not quite as important as polyurethane, which we will go over very shortly. But what you want to do, like two or three treads at a time before you keep going down, because you need to be able to reach that top tread to wipe off the excess stain before you continue down. So stain tends to dry pretty quickly, and you can walk on it pretty soon after you've stained it. At least that's been my experience. And you'll see me, I'm just in my sock feet, which tends to work the best. Because I do have some stuff upstairs that I need to kind of pull down, but I'm just gonna let it go for now, and we'll see how far I can reach, but probably at least 3 treads, and then I'll wipe off the top one and then kind of move my way down. So that's really the only difference with the treads, and you'll see how that goes right now. day 2 now, and everything has been stained. I did do a little bit of touch-ups this morning. If you happen to see any darker spots where the stain took a little bit darker than you want, or maybe you didn't wipe it off well enough the day before, you can just lightly sand that area down. And then I also went around and just made sure that I got the coverage that I was looking for, so everything's looking pretty good today. And now we're ready to apply our first coat of polyurethane. Again, I'm going to start with the handrails and the newel posts, just because I don't have to walk on those surfaces, and then we'll be doing the treads last, just like we did yesterday with the staining. One of the things I would recommend with whatever polyurethane you're using, I like the Vassar polyurethane, which is the same company that made the stain that we used. This is satin. It's super nice. I really like it, and it's probably my favorite polyurethane to work with. It is an oil base, so I just kind of play it safe when I'm dealing with high touch areas like handrails, and then particularly the treads. I'm planning on doing 3 coats, even though this is a high solid polyurethane. But anyway, super good stuff. And one of the things that I always do when I'm doing polyurethaning, particularly if I've done the staining and I know what the stain is that I will mix in a little bit of the stain into the poly and actually tint the poly the same color of the stain that I'm using. It just kind of helps things look pretty uniform, and I just kind of like the way that it looks. It darkens things up a little bit, but when you do 3 coats of polyurethane, it just kind of ends up having a nice rich look to it, and it kind of evens out the coloring through all the wood textures as well. So you don't need to overdo it as far as how much stain you're mixing into your poly. So I'll kind of show you guys how I do that. But again, I'm only gonna mix in, I don't know, like it'd be like 1/8 of a cup, something like that. I just kind of eyeball it with my edging container. Also, I just kind of wiped off my brush that I did all the staining with, and that's what I'm going to use to polyurethane. So that's a nice little feature too. That way you don't have to like be washing out a bunch of stuff. And then if you keep these well wrapped, you can just use them each day, and it's not a big deal. So that's what we're doing. So let's pour some poly here. Also, same rules apply for polyurethane as stain. You want to stir it, not shake it. So just remember that when you're using any kind of polyurethane. And when I go to, I'm going to open it, stir it, make sure all of the heavy solids are off the bottom and incorporated throughout the polyurethane, and then I'll pour my container, mix in some stain, stir that up, and then we'll be ready to rock. All right, so I've got my poly poured, everything's mixed and looking good. If you're real sensitive to fumes, or you just do this a lot, I would recommend using a nice respirator like this one. This has the the pink filters on it, so it does help filter out the fumes quite a bit. And the only other thing that you may see me do is, I've already kind of gone through and wiped things down, but the handrails and the newel posts, it's not as big of a deal. But on the treads, I will be vacuuming before once I'm done walking up and down. When I start to put the polyurethane down, I will be vacuuming to make sure I don't get any, get up all the dust and grit that have accumulated overnight. The other thing too is, you might see that there are some nail holes in the surfaces, whether it's on the treads or the handrails or whatever. I don't mess with that at all until after my first coat of polyurethane. So after the first coat of poly, that's when I actually will do I'll fill in any nail holes with some colored wood putty that's the same color or similar to the color of the stain. I've just found it looks a lot better if you wait until after the first coat of poly to do that. So that's what's up, and now we're actually going to be throwing down some polyurethane on everything. Alright, so we're back on the job site and the polyurethane has dried. That's coat number 1. So we're prepping everything today for coat number 2. And what I'll be doing first is sanding everything down with my 150 grit sandpaper from 3M. That is the grain I prefer. Some people will probably debate me on that, but when you're doing high build polys, you can use a fairly decent grit of sandpaper in between coats. I learned that from some floor guys and some stain guys that do a lot of this kind of work, and they sand the crap out of stuff. So it works out better, and that way you're not messing with some like super high grit that's going to take you forever. And also we want to kind of rough up the poly a little bit so that the next coat of poly sticks well. One of the things I'll be looking for as I sand is we want to start getting it smoother and smoother. So you're going to feel some grit after that first coat of poly from dust settling in it overnight, but also the kind of like the feathering of the wood is going to be sticking up a little bit. So we're going to sand all that out. And I'm also looking for drips. So if the poly pooled anywhere and it doesn't look good, or we got any runs in the polyurethane after I put it on, we want to make sure we sand those out. And then we'll be getting more and more particular with our sanding as we get closer to the final coat of poly. After I'm done sanding, I'll run the shop vac, vacuum up all that stuff, and then I will be wood filling all of the nail holes and any divots and things that I see that may need to be filled. I always like doing that after the first coat of polyurethane, because if you fill the nail holes before you poly, it tends to like smudge and not look as good, and it really draws more attention to the wood or the holes, which is not what we want. And I'm using the Minwax wood putty, and I think this is the color that's going to work out the best, the red mahogany. I really like these tinted wood putties. So one thing I would say is that if you're kind of debating between two of them, don't go for like an exact match. It's better to go a little bit darker than lighter. You will notice them a lot less. And I'm not gonna do this where, like, if you've wood filled a lot of like primed regular baseboard or whatever with kind of that orange wood filler and then sanded it, that's not what we're trying to do here. I don't want to do any sanding to this. This stuff's like really kind of gummy. So you can, once you smear it in, you just kind of wipe away the excess with a rag, and then that's how it's gonna look. And then we'll run poly over top of that. So just a little bit different process than how we typically fill in nail holes if we were just going to paint this stuff. So that's just something to be aware of. After all of the wood filling is done, then I will run my second coat of polyurethane. It's going to go on exactly the same as we did with the first coat. Just know that when you run your second coat of poly, that poly is going to stretch a lot further than it did than the first go around. So it's also going to be much more prone to drips because we've already got a top coat on the wood on top of the stain. Generally on your first coat with the polyurethane, the wood's going to soak in quite a bit of that polyurethane as well. Less of that is going to happen on this coat, and even less on the third coat. So you just want to be a little more careful with how you're laying it down. You're going to put it down a little bit thinner, and then you just want to be policing your drips a little bit more, because that's going to be more likely to occur this go around than previously. So all that being said, let's get a cracking. right, this is day 4. I'm about to put the last coat of polyurethane on all the treads and handrails and all that good stuff. So we need to do our last sand, and super important to make sure you don't have any drips or anything that doesn't look quite right. You want to square all of that up before we do our last coat of polyurethane. Some people might just do 2 coats, that's fine. I like doing 3 just because these are all high touch areas, like the handrails and the treads are going to get walked on, so I just like doing a nice high build on that. Just makes it a little bit more durable and will last a super long time. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did yesterday, except I don't have to fill any nail holes. So it's just going to be a sand, and then again, the second coat of polyurethane. And on this sand, I would start paying attention to how things feel. So I'm constantly running my hands over the surfaces on the handrails. It's really the most important part to get hella smooth is the handrails. The treads don't need to be that smooth. You actually want them to be slightly grippy, so we don't want them to be like polished glass when we're done, because then you're creating a fall hazard. So but I will talk a little bit more about that tomorrow when we get into applying our finish wax and doing all of that. So that's what's up. Just gonna sand and then do our last coat of poly. Ready to go. Alrighty, we're on the last day of the of this particular job, and all my coats of poly are done. So now we've got a few final things to do, and I have a long day ahead of me. So I'm just going to run you guys real quick through the next part of the process. And what I want to do is finish wax the handrails and probably the newel posts, and I'll probably do a little bit on the end caps as where the spindles are going in. And so what you're gonna do, or what I like to do, is use quad zero steel wool. That's the very finest of steel wool. So what this does is it's very similar to like a very high grit sandpaper, but we just want to get out any of the little dust particles and stuff that may have settled in overnight without messing up the actual finish of the polyurethane that we've built up over the last couple days. So once we take down any of the kind of rough bits with the steel wool, then I'm going to be using my favorite finish wax. That's Johnson & Johnson finish wax. You can usually get this at Home Depot. Sometimes I've had trouble finding it, but then I found it on Amazon as well. This is my favorite stuff. So you just put this on like car wax. So I usually just use one of my rags to put it on. You can do it a circular motion or back and forth, whatever. I just want to get a nice coat on all of this stuff. And you want to pay particular attention to the high touch areas. So the handrails and then the top of the newel posts and things like that are the most important things to really pay attention to. And just, I would highly recommend not doing any really steel wool action or finishing wax to the treads. If you do that, which I did on the very first set of stairs that I did like many years ago, it makes them incredibly slippery, and you're creating a like legit tripping hazard or like fall hazard. So we just want to do this on the things that people's hands will be touching, not where their feet will be touching. So yeah, that's going to be the process, and I'm going to run you guys through that real quick up here. And then I'm not sure how much more filming I'll be doing. I'll probably just time lapse the rest of this once I kind of get into the painting part of this, because it's again already going to be a long day. It snowed last night, so it's just been a little bit of a slow start this morning. So anyway, that's what's up, and you're going to see me kind of what the steel wooling and finishing wax process looks like. One other thing about the this wax particularly, you want to put it on and let it haze. If you've ever waxed a car, you'll be familiar with this, but you really want it to dry, so it's getting a layer of that on there. And then what you want is then we're going to buff it out after it is dried and is hazed over. And then what that does, it also kind of gives it a nice shine to it and protects it a little bit, but also just makes it super smooth. So that's what we're doing, and ready to go. All right, so I'm gonna just hit the handrails and probably tops of the newel posts real quick with the finishing wax. As I went around, I saw a few things in the polyurethane that I'm not thrilled with, so I'm gonna do a little bit of touch-up polyurethaning. Just to, the way the light comes in, it's just kind of casting different light on certain things that I just want to clean up a little bit. So before I make some stuff wet with some more polyurethane, I'm gonna do my finish waxing. So I'm just going to do again the handrails and kind of the tops of the newel posts here, and I'm just going to lay down the wax first, let that set, and then I'll buff it out, and then I'll do my touch-up polyurethaning, and then we'll be getting into the painting part of the day. So that's what's up. All right, so I've finished doing the finish wax, and I also buffed it off, and it's a pretty straightforward process with that. You just want to make sure you didn't leave any on there. It just shines up the poly a little bit, also gives another little protective layer on the surface. So now I'm going to be doing the priming and painting of the risers and the we've got stringers, whatever you want to call them, running up the sides of the steps, and then some trim underneath these end caps up here. So one of the things you need to do, or I need to do first, is do some sanding, and I want to sand anywhere where the poly, particularly the poly and the stain, got on the wood. Even if this wood's already primed, I'm going to be going over it with this product. which has gotten some use on it already, but that's Extreme Block Primer from Sherwin-Williams. It's an oil-based product. If you don't prime this stuff, then whatever trim paint you use is going to end up like you're going to see the stain that got on the raw wood kind of bleed through. I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over this in this video because even though this isn't really a tutorial, I'm more just showing you my process. I'm going to be doing some more like kind of concentrated tutorials on this. As I'm filming this, I'm realizing how much I could probably talk about this and little nuanced things, but I'm going to be doing that back in the studio, which I think will be more helpful. But anyway, also, if you like this stage, I've documented pretty thoroughly in the last staircase video I did, where I didn't do the staining or the polying. That was already done for me by some floor guys, and then we came in and did the painting afterwards. So if you want to see a little bit more in-depth view of the painting side of things, you can check that video out. And yeah, but I'll probably just pretty much be time-lapsing from here on through. And what I'm going to be doing is sanding, number one, sanding everything that got poly and stain on it. Then I'm going to prime with the oil-based primer all of the risers and any parts of the already primed trim that got stain or poly on it. And then I'm going to be using Emerald Urethane Trim Enamel, which is one of my favorite trim paints. I've done a video on that as well. I'll link to that up here. And that's the trim paint that the homeowners have used in the rest of the house, so I'm just staying consistent. It also happens to be one of my favorite trim paints. And then I will be painting 2 coats on the stringers, risers, and any of the trim that's kind of connected to the staircase. So that's the process I'll be doing the rest of today. I have to hustle. It's already going to be a long day, but that's all right. That's part of it. And the only difference between what you'll see me do in this video and the previous staircase video is that I'm not going to be laying down any tape on the treads because I just find it looks better if I freehand it. Again, this is a very technical process. It's one of the trickier things that I do in my line of work. So if you're kind of a beginner and haven't done this stuff before, this isn't like an entry-level job. I don't mean to besmirch anybody's skill, but if it's your first time, this is going to take you a hot minute, and it's a lot of work. That's what I kind of want to get across to you guys at a fairly like high level of difficulty. It'd be like a black diamond if you're into skiing and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on. I probably won't be talking to camera until the very end of the video when we do a little wrap up, which hopefully will be sooner than later, but it's about 11:20 right now, and we will see how long this takes, but I'm probably gonna be here till well after 5, which is totally fine. I knew today was gonna be a longer day, and then other stuff happened. So anyway, I will hopefully see you very, very soon. so we're done, and it's a little late. It's about half past beer 30 right now. No, but it's about 7 o'clock on Friday night, and I'm ready to definitely get out of here and get back to the old fam. But yeah, and I've got work tomorrow. That's not your problem. I'm just letting you know. So anyway, we've got primed everything, did 2 top coats of the emerald urethane on all these stringers and risers, and did a little touch-up polyurethaning. Everything's looking pretty good. The stair guys will be in here next week to put in all the spindles. And actually, we're going to be coming back here and doing some painting kind of in this whole common area in this house. So if there's any touch-ups or anything, I will take care of it then. But looks pretty solid to me. I'm happy with the way things turned out, and the last day is always a long day, but that's okay. And I hope you guys found this useful. If you did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, and have a good one. Peace.
Amazing.